This is the Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethi.
Your host, Sethi.
And Stylist Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we? Welcome to Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethi.
And I'm your co-host and stylist, Rashi Bindra.
So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in our conversations, Rashi, on the show is just branding, messaging, and making sure that, we're being sensitive to what's going on in the marketplace, but making sure also that our brand message is getting out properly. So we had this discussion about getting a PR specialist on the show, and luckily enough for us, Dani is here with us. Dani, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's awesome to be here.
So I'm gonna just give a quick bio for our listeners, Dani, if you don't mind. I made a couple of notes. I'm gonna just read that out just so that our listeners know who you are, your experiences, and your expertise in the area. So bear with us for a second. I'm just gonna read through that so we can give some background to you, and then we'll jump into a fun conversation and learn about your world.
Sure, no problem.
So Dani is the president and founder of NVP Group. It's a 360-degree public relations, branding, and media firm specializing in brand identity and positioning, modern non-traditional communications, and strategic planning. Proudly one of the only Canadian-based agencies working on an international scale, specializing in fashion, lifestyle, beauty, entertainment, and consumer brand industries on an international level. And prior to that, you were with MOI Group, which specializes in PR and artist management.
That's right.
So a really exciting resume, even at a short bio level. So a lot of fun stuff that I guess we can talk about. So yeah, we'll leave it with you to start with. Dani, tell us a little bit about yourself and about MBK Group.
So, I could go on forever, but I'll keep it short. I founded the firm. Actually, we rebranded in December 2019 to the NVP Group. It was previously called something else.
Right.
But I've been in and out of PR since 2007. So that's 13 years now, which sounds crazy. And I dabbled quite heavily in entertainment management for quite some time, which is what the previous firm was, and realized very quickly that the art of public relations and management really sort of lives in understanding the identity of a brand and how to communicate the identity of the brand to the media with honest and truthful but yet captivating stories. And that helps build awareness, and it helps build, in turn, loyal clientele and sales, and really helps establish the brand on various different levels. So when we started this company, the goal was really to make sure that we were looking at the platform as an international platform, because at the end of the day, when you start a brand, you want your success to eat, live, and breathe beyond just the Canadian borders. And when you have a .com, which is essentially now how we're all kind of surviving, you become a global brand right out of the gate. So it really is important that this is something that we communicate to people outside of Canada and throughout various different industries. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, and it's different and it's exciting, and COVID-19 has definitely served its fair share of challenges. So every day is a new and exciting day in my world, that's for sure. But
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good.
So you said something that's kind of hit home, honest and truthful. Especially at this day and age when there's so much going on that can impact a business or a personal brand or, a .com or, any sort of business. Honest and truthful is kind of a challenging thing to maintain, I would think.
Yeah. I think we live in this world where, brands create a marketing story, right? Mm-hmm. And they want to create a story that they feel consumers want to hear. And sometimes that is stretching the truth. So a really popular topic right now is the aspect of sustainability, which is kind of where the topic of organic was a few years ago. Is a brand will say they're a sustainable brand, but in reality, maybe they just use organic cotton, or maybe they use sustainable materials, but maybe their practices are not sustainable. But they're still marketing it as a sustainable brand. To me, when you're pitching out stories, consumers are very smart. And I think right now we're seeing like they can source their own materials, they can source their own information. And so if you're not truthful about who you are and what your brand values are and what you stand for, you're seeing a lot of brands come to the forefront in these like very heated, controversial sort of episodes of kind of being called out for being, you know, untruthful or disloyal to consumers. And by the end of the day, it hurts you. And so we don't stand by that. We stand by, you know, understanding what the point of your brand is and how you're going to communicate that to consumers in a way that is captivating, because there's space for everybody to be successful. And it's just a matter of establishing what that storyline is and how that really speaks to the brand identity in order to bring loyal consumers to you and help build on that. And if you aren't loyal, there is no like forever sort of message where you're just going to continue going on and on and on where you're not going to get caught. Like it just, we live in call out culture now. We live in accountability. We live in this world of like just this huge boldness of people being unafraid to, you know, drive stories and call things out as they see it. And when that happens, you know, God forbid it happens to brands, but when it does happen, it creates a much bigger issue. And it could have been avoided from the get-go if brands were, you know, transparent from the beginning.
Back to honest and truthful.
Yeah, totally.
So in this day, and you know, Dani, going back to your point, which is actually very, very true about being honest and being real about, you know, who you are as a brand, how would brands continue keeping customers' loyalty? Because that's such a huge component in any sort of growth, but there's also so many changes happening, like for example with like COVID, or like with the, you know, social issues that have been like rising up. And like you said, consumers are getting smarter and smarter now, and they also want answers about things that they don't stand for. So how would brands, I guess, keep that loyalty yet be true to themselves?
Well, I mean, I've talked about this a lot with, you know, various clients and clients' friends and just people in general over the past, 4 months since COVID started. And then the BLM movement sparked like a whole different set of things. And I think the reality is that no brand is perfect, right? Nobody in this world is perfect. And so it's better for a brand to look back and look inwards at themselves and say, how do we lead with purpose? And how do we throw out your traditional marketing plans, throw out your traditional PR plan, throw out everything that you had planned previous to COVID and previous to BLM, and look at it as, what do we need to do right here and now to become better as a brand and as humans? And so lead with that purpose and lead with the intent that you want to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And I wholeheartedly believe that we as humans and founders of brands are inherently good people, you know, and you want to be a part of the solution in the world. You don't want to be a part of the problem. And so you do make changes and you communicate those changes to your audience about what you're doing, and you're being transparent, and maybe you don't show up perfectly, and maybe you are flawed in some way, shape, or form, and that's okay as long as you take accountability for being you know, flawed, and working through those changes and committing to being more, you know, cognizant of today's environment, be it like sustainability or with, you know, the social injustices and the race issues happening, or with, you know, trying to combat the health crisis that we're all going through, and then continuing that on. And I think that's most important, is making sure that this is not like a blip in the brand. This is a movement that will forever change and pivot a brand to being better moving forward. And as long as a brand shows up with that mentality and communicates those changes, I think, you know, your consumers will ride that out with you, and they'll believe that you are inherently good. But if you do something where you say one thing and then you do another and they catch you, you've completely gone backwards to what you know, the whole point of this movement is and what the whole point of this pandemic is. And that will hurt you even more so at the end of the day. So I think it just lies in just inherently doing the work and knowing how you can be better and communicating how you can be better. And people will hold you accountable to being better. And as a brand, you should want that, you know?
So in terms of call out culture, call out culture is so prevalent right now, as you mentioned. You know, everybody has easy access, Twitter, Instagram, you know, and anywhere you go. I mean, like even just Google reviews. I mean, you can get, or even you know, if it's an app and you jump onto your Play Store and you can dump all sorts of reviews, whether they're true or not. So call out culture is abused a lot, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of scenarios, and I'm sure you see this all the time, where maybe the brand hasn't done anything, maybe they haven't done like blundered or erred, but yet someone decided, whether it's a competitor, whether it's someone who just didn't like, you know, something about that campaign or whatever the case, has made it their goal now to ruin this brand image.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I mean, there's a side where the companies, the brands make the mistakes, and I'm sure that happens, but there's also this side where it's taken advantage of because it's so easily, because you're technically hiding behind a screen. No one sees you when you're making out these claims of this company sucks and they did this to me, that, because you're a faceless person behind the computer at that point. So it's easy to be brave at that point. So how have you experienced anything like that? And what are some of the stories you can potentially tell us of how companies work through things like that?
I mean, I've experienced a lot.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: keyboard warriors are going to be.
That's a perfect. I love that, keyboard warriors.
They are keyboard warriors. It's like they're going to exist now. They existed 5 years ago when the internet got invented. It was like this like whole world of keyboard warriors came out. And, you know, trolls, people call them trolls. And there's people that have like Finstas, which is like the fake Instagram that is intended directly to just like call people out and try to drive cancel culture.
Jeez.
And it's wild. It really is wild. But at the end of the day, like if a brand didn't do anything wrong, and there's really no truth to the matter, I would say it's not going to go viral, because people are smart enough to recognize that something that doesn't happen in real life, or it hasn't happened in real life, isn't worth it going viral, right? But if something has happened, or a brand did make a mistake, and they got called out for it, there's a high likelihood right now, in the heat of everything going on, because emotions are so high with everything happening, that, you know, it very well end up going viral, in which case that a brand needs to immediately look at how they can be a part of the solution, and how they can not necessarily kill that story, which ultimately is what, you know, we want to do, is we want to stop it from going, you know, globally viral, but how we can approach the situation as a human and be, you know, empathetic to those who we may have hurt, or those who may have been offended in any way, which shape or form, and right the wrong. And you have to get on it right away. And if you leave it and you pretend like, you know, nothing happened, let's just leave it, there's a high likelihood that if it did happen and someone's called you out on it, it's just going to continue to grow until you decide to make that change. And we see it, it's called crisis communications, right? We've seen it before where, you know, a brand didn't do anything wrong, and someone called them out on something because they thought something was happening. And it started to gain momentum. And it's, you know, it's very simple. You issue a statement, you provide what is now referred to as receipts of, you know, the transaction or no transaction or whatever it may be. You have a private conversation. You do what you deem is necessary in order to right the wrong, or right the perceived wrong, I think is a better sort of
for sure.
it. And each situation is unique to itself. Like there is no template sort of like right or wrong thing to do to prevent a situation like that from getting out of hand. But you need to get the right people on board and the right team on board to be able to manage that situation accordingly, so that it doesn't hurt the brand. And I think we are in the midst of probably one of the largest like call out culture areas that we have ever been before. And there's this whole message of like, is it call out culture? Is it cancel culture? Or is it accountability culture? And I speak quite openly about the fact that I do not like cancel culture. I don't really believe in cancel culture. I believe in accountability culture. And accountability allows for a brand to to change and to right that wrong. And also it allows for, if someone is like a troll or a keyboard warrior and calls someone out on something that isn't true, it also allows for that wrong to be made right. And I think that is really, that's really important. And you have to address it right away. Ignoring it is not really the thing to do, unless it's just like a random one person,
sure,
random hate message. You're going to get that no matter what. You see, like,
no matter what you do.
Yeah, like any sort of like media story that hits online that has like the comment section at the bottom, which a lot of people don't read, you're going to read that and you're going to get hate. There's always going to be people that are just like wording out. But it's when it becomes, a thing, like an actual, it starts getting its own wings, as we like to say. And then that's when you really need to start looking at it like, okay, we need to probably make a statement and say something to write that opinion and stop that from going, wild.
Well, I think, we're all human at the end of the day. Like if someone's made an honest, genuine mistake and they've owned up to it, and whether they apologize or, like you said, they're holding themselves accountable for it and understand the error or the misstep, if it is a genuine error or misstep, I think as a human, I could be like, you know what, I could have easily made that mistake or probably worse in that situation. And if this person's owning up to it, and they're not genuinely a bad person, they're not out to be malicious or to wrong someone or wrong something, but they've genuinely made a mistake. And I think that really goes a long way with consumers, me as a consumer, especially if I'm loyal to a brand and something comes up that might be a challenge for me to get on board with. And now, I'm on the fence of like, do I support this brand or not? But if this situation does call for a proper accountability and the management team or ownership team is coming on board and saying, hey, look, this is what happened. Here's like obviously the situation. They're holding themselves accountable and they're finding a solution to fix it. That makes it easier for me as a consumer to say, you know what, I can appreciate that because now you're doing something about it.
Totally, it's so true. I think, like I said, like consumers are smart and they wanna now more than ever be involved or spend their money where they feel is being spent wisely. Like I think a perfect example, to be honest, of like a brand that has done things wrong, but is a very good brand wholeheartedly and then turned it around is Lululemon. When you think about it, like, I don't know if you follow them closely, but when they released that whole like line of their infamous athleisure leggings that essentially kind of break the athleisure world that were see-through, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like that whole crazy, like wild bad press around like what they claimed it had like silver or something, and it was actually see-through. And they fixed it, right? They recalled everything, they handled it, they spoke openly about it, they took ownership about it. It was handled. And if you look at where Lululemon is now, and they've had their fair share of like
challenges.
Yes, with various things over the years. And they've just purchased the app Mirror, which is an AI-based app that quite honestly I think is going to redefine the future of like sort of physical workout spaces, because it's like an AI-based workout app program that's like on a mirror that doubles as like a full-length mirror house. It's really incredible. They just purchased it. And they're really leading and winning like the COVID-19 pivot, if you ask me, of like understanding how collaborations can be made and the future of the fitness industry. So like, people will stay loyal to brands like Lululemon if you take ownership and you handle it right. And I think that's one of the most important things to recognize is like you drop the ego, drop the pride, and recognize that now is the time you have made a mistake to like just own up to it, because we as humans will forgive you if you play your cards right and you play your cards honestly and you're not trying to do anything like shady, like Boohoo just blew up today or yesterday, right, with their like unethical practices. And so we're going to see, how that plays out, right? We're kind of watching it in real time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your practice in a little bit more detail. So for you, I know you have a couple of different segments. There's fashion, there's lifestyle, entertainment. So what does a typical client look like for your firm?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I sell client stories. I sell brand stories. I sell product stories to the media on a daily basis, right? So if I'm not passionate about what I'm selling, I can't make you be passionate about it, or I can't make you believe that it's great. So an underlying thing that I really take seriously is that I need to be passionate about what you're doing. I need to believe that this brand or this product or this person, because we do people, is doing something that is remarkable and special and kind of disrupting or innovating an area. So for example, we're not going to represent like the next just random bar of soap for the sake of being a bar of soap, right? It needs to have a story. It needs to have, a founder that has an interesting story. It needs to have some sort of like, connection to something that is different and unique that makes me really feel passionate about, okay, well, this is something really interesting that I think is there space for in the media. And then, we run with it. And if I don't feel passionate about it, it doesn't mean that it's like a dud brand or anything. It just means that I'm maybe not the right fit for you.
Right.
There are other people that may be super passionate about it that it's not interesting to me. And that's okay, right? We don't all like everything. That's why there's space for everybody. So we work with everything from straight startups to, publicly traded companies and huge corporations. And it just depends on, what the needs are. We deal with everybody and every client as a completely different sort of canvas. We don't work off template. I don't believe in that method. And we base what we do off of what we believe their needs are. So if I don't think that, the client is ready for US outreach or international outreach because maybe they need to, figure out their price points and their conversion rates or their shipping methods, then I'm not going to go pitch it to the US just because they may want that. We really are an integrated partner within your business. And we kind of come in as that consultant right out of the gate to look at every aspect of what you do and how we can play a role in building on your success, because our best interest is your success at all times. So I'm never going to, drive a ship differently than what I believe the brand wants or what I know the brand wants. So that's kind of what we do. And we are proudly one of the only firms that represents clients throughout Canada and the US. And we do a bunch of work in the UK as well. And we represent people, which is a little bit different than a lot of firms in this country, as well as, various different fashion brands, lifestyle brands, travel brands, beauty brands. Entertainment's a big one for us, which unfortunately at the moment is kind of like dead in the water. So, yeah, that's us as a whole.
Well, entertainment's almost taken a different twist, right? Like there's different forms of entertainment. It's not like the mainstream entertainment is being hit and being challenged. But the entertainment industry, the landscape of what that looks like is also to a degree changing through this environment.
It is. It's kind of like fashion, right? Like when the pandemic hit, we first recognized it actually, I would say it was like mid to end of February, because I have a client who specializes in like huge, large, like arena tours. And she's a creative director that, produces these shows. And the ISO Awards, which is the International Skating Awards, which actually airs digitally tomorrow, got canceled in Montreal. And that's when we knew like, oh, like this is real. This is an actual thing that's hitting Canada and the US real hard. And then it just started to like bankroll from there. And it's totally changing to like the digital forum, which is what fashion is doing. When you look at fashion, the live show, the essence of the live show is not dead, but it's on pause, and brands still have to deliver material and collections and to want to get sales. So they're doing things differently. And I really think it's super interesting because there's ways to do things that still drive the same like emotional reaction that you can get in real life through like video forms and various different other mediums that are really successful. And I think it's just going to allow for more people to be a part of a brand success that maybe they didn't think of before.
so like recently, and you know what, actually, Danny, that's a very strong point, is that a lot of fashion brands are trying to do videos and trying to do like different forms to, you know, keep their consumer engaged and keep themselves relevant and like super important. Recently during, you know, Paris Fashion Week, a lot of the fashion brands were doing many different types of video storytelling. So it's not necessarily like they were showing their entire collection. It might be just, you know, one or two pieces that they really spent that time on, but they kind of made it into like a video story where it had more art, it had more like emotion. Do you, and you know, from like your experience, do you think that would be the next trend even in Canada for fashion brands? Because we don't really have a very we don't have a very strong fashion week. I know we've had in the past, and then the few years, unfortunately, it's not, you know, hit the mark as we all would love for it to do that. Do you think if Canada would follow this trend, again, from your, you know, expertise and experience, it may change things for the brands here?
Well, I mean, here's what I think. There is plenty of talent in this country that deserves to be on a global scale. Like that is just a non-negotiable, right? There's so much talent that is even coming out today mid-pandemic that I'm like, this is incredible that there's these really creative voices that are not being heard on a global scale. And I think, you know, my firm was agency of record for Reset, which was partnered with TFW. And the collections, and we did some really incredible projects with them. And I think video has always kind of been like a secondary thought for a lot of brands. Brands have recognized that, like, especially in Canada, that like video plays a role, but understanding how to tap into what kind of role that plays, I think it was always something on the back burner. And I think it lies in the fact that like Canadian designers have a much more difficult time getting on the global stage than others. And budget is a huge part of that, right? Is like, how do we create a really captivating video with the little money or zero support we get from the government, which is a totally different conversation. But like, I really do think that video will help expand brands, because when you build a video, when you create that, you can drive such a strong emotional response. Like I come from the performing arts industry. Like I used to be a professional dancer, believe it or not, like way back in the day. So a lot of my peers are, you know, still in that performance world, and you can drive that. It's like watching a movie. You can drive that emotional response through a video as long as you have the right people on the screen and the right people behind the camera. And I think now we're going to start to see a lot more of that movement from Canadian designers, and understanding like how you can really create something so beautiful and captivating. And you can have people in like India and Australia and the UK and Iceland watch it because it's on .com, right? It's so much more easily accessible than saying like, oh, there are live shows in Toronto, but I'm in Vancouver and I can't even see it, right? And now it's like you have this platform to captivate an entire world. And so you start to see brands go viral a lot faster. And I hope it's an opportunity for Canadian designers to tap into it and get on that global stage and start to have people outside of the country recognize just really how powerful and talented this country is.
Absolutely. So let's take a quick break right there, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation with Dani.
Sure.
And welcome back to Elevated Drapes. We are with Dani Matte, and we are talking about fashion, about PR, about lifestyle, and the changes during COVID. So, Dani, you know, just picking back from what we were saying earlier, what would you know, you were mentioning there's so many different areas that you manage. Like you have fashion, you have lifestyle, and you were also doing management, like artist management. How did you kind of get into that?
Okay, this is a good one. So I went to business school at Western, and
good old Western.
Yeah, right. Best years of my life. So
I didn't go to Western, but I spent a lot of time there that I probably shouldn't have.
you and probably everyone I talked to who didn't go there.
Yeah.
It's the best school. So like, here's me advocating for Western over here.
Right.
And so in my third and fourth years, I was studying marketing, and they want you to do a project. And long story short, I really wanted to capture a void in the Canadian entertainment industry. And what I found was entertainers in the US have agents and have managers and have publicists, right? They have all three. Mm-hmm. And entertainers in Canada have an agent, and it kind of like stops there. And so I recognized like, well, what is the difference between Canada and the States, and why are there these opportunities for entertainers to have representation in the States, but why is it not allowed here? Or not, I shouldn't say not allowed, but why is it not a thing here? Arguably because the industry is far smaller. But that really got me onto something. And so right after I graduated, I founded my previous company, MOI. And it was meant to manage, at the time, choreographers, which if you know, choreographers are people who work with dancers or talent that moves, basically. And really try to establish a much more strategic direction for a lot of talent, because I find like creatives are brilliant at their craft, right? Like they know how to do things that, you know, other people cannot do, and they see something and they just see a vision, and it's incredible. But what they don't often see is themselves as a business and themselves as like a strategic long-term business. So you as a creator or as a human, you are a brand, right? Like you, both of you arguably are a brand. You are an influencer in some way, shape, or form. And so I really wanted to like work with these people and establish a long-term goal to bring them success. And so I started off representing some of the best in the country, which I was very lucky to do. And then that morphed into, you know, looking at PR strategies for them, and looking at and hiring other PR companies, which kind of morphed into me actually working alongside Jake Gold. So I don't know if you know Jake Gold, but he's probably one of the most powerful music managers in the country.
Okay.
And he represented the Tragically Hip. He was in the
right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So he and I met, and I ended up coming on board with him and working side by side with him, building his producer management division in the music industry.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I learned so much from him on, you know, the music industry itself and how that whole thing works. And really understanding that strategic management is such a needed thing for creatives. And so many people don't know what it is, or think that an agent provides the same service, and they don't, right? An agent is very, very necessary for a lot of people, but so is a manager. And so that's how I got into it. And then, you know, just kind of morphed from there. And I worked with Doc McKinney, and we had a partnership with Rock Nation in LA. And so I was back and forth from LA very regularly. And then, you know, it just kind of has rolled over. And so now we still represent a small roster of clients on the management side, and we work with them on long-term strategic direction, and we help negotiate contracts and you know, essentially manage the brand. And that's a big part of building success. And so when I look at my clients on the PR side, we bring that kind of service over. And that's why I think we have a very different perspective than a lot of others, because we understand how integrated we need to be in order to drive that success, and how important it is to look at both sides of the equation. So that's how I got into it, basically.
Sounds like such an interesting, like, I mean, a lot of your backstory prior to MVP was artist management. And that was like almost the crux of you building your PR side of your business, it seems like. Yeah,
absolutely. For sure. Because we were working with a couple PR firms in the States. And I've noticed that I was giving them the story. I was pitching, you know, like I was providing them all those angles. I was giving them everything that they needed outside of, you know, like just the generic materials per se.
Sure.
And they were just kind of farming that out. And I was like, well, there's something here of being able to communicate that, craft the message and communicate that message out. So that's what spearheaded that for me. And I had always kind of dabbled in that world with various different clients. And so then it was just kind of we need to do this full time and really build this up. And there's an art to this that we have and we understand. And quite honestly, it's really interesting to me because every day is a little bit different, right? No 2 days are exactly the same. So I loved that aspect of it.
Which side do you enjoy more?
Well,
I know it might be a question that's tough to answer.
Here's the thing. Management is 24/7, right? Like you're available to your client at any hour of the day. So if your client is, nocturnal and does all of their work in the middle of the night, for me, it can get very, it can get exhausting, right? Because you are their person. You are their kind of like, I don't want to scratch, but yeah, you're their lifeline. And you develop this like relationship that is so close. And so, every tiny little nitty gritty detail. And I love that about it, but I also hate that about it because you can't disconnect. And as a human, like you need to be able to disconnect. So there's good and bad to both. I don't know that I would say I love any one of them more. I love the aspect of like PR and events more than the day-to-day grind of management. And a lot of people at like both industries are super glamorous because you see like, a concert of someone performing on stage and you're like, oh, this is amazing. But they don't see the hundreds of hours of work that goes into just getting that happen that we do, right?
Of course.
And same with PR. You see these like big luxurious events and this like awesome feature in like Vogue or Women's Wear Daily, but you don't see like the countless hours of grind that it takes just to get that. So I don't know. I think I love them both. I love PR maybe a little bit more because you can disconnect, right? Like when 6 p.m., 7 p.m. happens, it's easier to disconnect than in management, right? So I don't know. My clients will probably hate me for saying that, but that's okay. I love them.
But it's true though. It's so important to disconnect, and I know we've like between us, we've had those conversations where I'm still not able to, and this guy is like, yeah, dude, I'm done. I'm like chilling now. Like I'm not gonna reply for like the next 6 hours. Like I'm done for the day, and I'm like, so I think that's really, really important, and I can see that being, as like management, you just can't like totally let go. So definitely see that.
Disconnect. It's so important.
I am still working on it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's very important to give yourself some downtime.
Yeah.
And in turn, me downtime.
I knew that was coming right there.
To be fair, it took me a really long time to understand that and value that. So like it's an ever learning sort of part of life is just what you do in your downtime and how important it is to show up the next day 100%. And what you need to do to get there is to rest, right? It's so important for everyone.
On the flip side, the challenge, and to Rashi's point, the challenge is that sometimes when your mind is in go mode and you have this influx of ideas, thoughts, strategies, and you just need to address it at that time before you lose the flow that's even going on in your own mind, right? And so I do get that. Like it's difficult because I know when I'm in that zone too, like, and I'm sure we all are all like that a little bit. When you're in that zone and it's coming at you internally, like you have to deal with it. Get it set in motion, so at least whatever is in your mind is being put out there.
That's such a creative, inherent sort of creative side of you.
Very.
Yeah.
Such a creative thing. Like everyone that I worked with in music would be like, oh, if they thought of something in their head that was like a riff or a song or a melody of sorts, it was like we have to get it out immediately before it leaves, and then you can't get it back. And so that's such a creative thing, and it's important. It is true, you have to do it, but then once you get it out, take a break. I'm all for breaks.
It's like the crash, right? Like if you do, and in my case, I'll give a example of a photo shoot, right? Like you do this crazy like photo shoot, you're so excited, you've not slept for 2 days, so there's all the tiny details now, you want it to be perfect. Once the shoot's done, everything's packed up, then that crash comes in where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna collapse and I just need 24 hours of the world leaving me alone so I can recover. And Dani, to your point, it's that creative side in you, right, that just has to come out bursting full of energy, or giving those ideas, or just writing a whole letter of ideas and then passing out.
So true. It's so true.
And I think that point you made about the creative versus the non-creative, like, so I have, like, I work in corporate as well, and I can, like, same like you, like, on the corporate side, 7 o'clock, like 6, 7 o'clock, I can shut down my computer, I can shut down my phone, and I don't have to look at it till the next morning. I mean, unless there's something really important going on and I have to pay attention, or something that I know may come up. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, for the most part, once I know it's shut off time, it's shut off time. With the creative side, whether it's hosting or producing music or DJing or putting scripts together for projects we're working on, if I'm in the moment, that's what's on my mind. I can't focus on any other project. Like, I have to do that. It has to be then, and it has to flow out in that moment, because the concept and my mind, what's the word I'm looking for? But like the flow of it is in the moment. Yeah. The emotion is in the moment, right? And I feel like if I leave it at that right then and there, and I come back to it a day later or 2 days later, that emotional high that I'm on in that moment feeling to create that piece won't be there, and it won't be this.
Yeah. It's true. I mean,
you physically can't tear away from it almost.
Yeah, it's true. I get that, because we as publicists are inherently creative, right? Like, you're going to tell me a story about your life, and I'm going to be like, oh, I just came up with this really great idea and pitch story or something. And then if I don't tap into it right away, then I'll come back the next day and be like, oh, I don't know. Or like, even, as something as so minuscule as coming up with like a headline to a press release, I could sit in front of the computer for like 6 hours and be like,
you're racking your brain,
like eating dinner or like on a call, and it'll come to me. I'm like, I got it. And you just need to get it out. And that's just like I think that's just something to do with people being creative. And I think there's something so like majestically beautiful about it. And being like, when you know that you found something, there's something inside of you that's just like, I got to do this right now. And there's nothing else matters except for making sure that whatever you need to do gets done. And that's kind of a sign of just being so inherently like dedicated to like the success of your craft. And I love that.
Passionate. Yeah. Well, I mean, I call it shower ideas as well, but because that's just me, that's where I get mine from more so than anything. But in the shower, like, I don't know what happens. Like, when I'm in there, instead of thinking about, other things in life, like, I'm just in my zone, and something's going to like pop in my head, and I'm going to be like, oh, I need to do this. This is the project I need to work on. I need to reach out to this person. Or I'll be like, sorry, like, we have to do this. And he's like, dude, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to change. Like, I literally have to come out and just say it, like, before anything. Like, you're just weird. That's all I get. Like, you're just weird.
We all get it differently. I mean, Lady Gaga would like stop a conversation. I think Taylor Swift does too. Stop a conversation midway, like at a dinner or something, if they think of something in their head.
Yeah.
Just like start recording on their phone, because that's just how it's done.
It comes.
Yeah.
It's exactly like sometimes, like, when we talk about musicians, like, sometimes if I have a melody in mind for a beat that I want to produce, and like it's in my mind right in that moment, I have to go on my record and look on my phone and just literally hum it to myself. Yeah. So when I go back to my equipment, I can go in and recreate it on the instruments. But in that moment, like, it's like if you don't get it, 2 minutes later, I can forget that whole melody.
Yeah, I totally get that. I get that, because as in my old life as a professional dancer and like creating. There you go. Right, like, it's the same thing. If you don't do it, it's gone, and then you're like, you spend so much time trying to get it back to realize that it's never coming back, right? It's gone. Someone else will think of it, and then
exactly. So let's flip gears back a little bit, back to, and that was amazing conversation on the creative side, but back to your business. So with or without COVID, just with the business itself, and switching gears with the PR firm, now managing everything from sort of artist management on the smaller scale of the business, but to the PR work on lifestyle, fashion, entertainment. What's some of the successes and challenges you've faced? I mean, one of them I know, and I would love to hear a lot about this, but you've been able to become a global firm as a Canadian company, which is amazing. So what are some of the successes and challenges, and how did you achieve that?
Well, I think I count my blessings and say that I've been lucky. I've been lucky in my pathway in life. And I don't believe that there's such thing as a complete failure.
Right.
So there's times where failures happen, but it's not a failure in your life. it's a learning lesson, right? And so trust me when I tell you I've had many. I've had failed partnerships.
Right.
And some have been very difficult to get through and navigate through, and you learn things from each and one of them. Being, maybe you thought someone was one person when you went into a project or a partnership, and then it turns out that they're not. And you learn the hard way, right? And you learn by seeing, as people say, when I don't think I can swear on this, I'm not going to swear, but when
Go right ahead.
You can. Go ahead. Just go ahead.
Shit gets stuff, people's real colors come out, and our true colors come out. And I think I've seen my fair share of that with various different partners or maybe clients in the past. And you see things where you go into business with someone and then you say, okay, this is going to be really amazing and they're going to be a great client, and then maybe they don't want to pay their bill because they just don't want to pay their bill, and so you spend so much time trying,
and energy.
Yeah. And it's wasted energy, because at the end of the day, like, what is that getting you? It's nothing, right? And so you weigh your pros and cons, and you try to be logical about it. From a success point of view, I mean, when we walked into the business, we really wanted to capture the fact that we had international relationships, and knowing that a lot of Canadian PR firms service the Canadian industry. And I think for a long time, before e-commerce really became like a huge part of what brands' identities are, that made sense. And then now, when you look at a brand, almost every single brand has an e-commerce capability, right? They have it. So we recognize the niche where, there's an opportunity for us to leverage our relationships cross-border in the US and provide a service to Canadian designers or international designers or US designers, where we can be essentially like that one-stop shop, right? You don't need to have a US PR firm and a Canadian PR firm and you're paying like double monthly retainers.
Right.
Expenses are so big, and you have more heads in the sort of in the table or at the table, and more cooks in the kitchen, and you're trying to relay messaging, and it gets confusing. You can have a firm that does both. And a lot of US firms don't even sort of recognize Canada exists, to be honest, because
that's frustrating.
Yeah. But I feel like, is it really surprising? I mean, the US is such a big market that is their focus, right? They don't even acknowledge that Canada could be a really fabulous market. And Canada quite often doesn't have the ability to cross border. And we did, and I've leveraged those relationships and kept them alive. And that's why we do what we do. And so I think one of our really biggest successes actually was when we produced our first New York Fashion Week show, which was, oh my God, September of 2018, I think. So spring, summer 19. Yeah, spring, summer 2019 was our first official on the New York Fashion Week calendar production of a show. And we've done it now 3 times since.
Wow.
And then we produced a big event during London Fashion Week, which was a big one. That was a really big milestone for the business. Just taking a brand over to the UK and capitalizing on sort of a movement that was happening there and support there around a royal appearance by Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle. And then, celebrating when you see the work that it takes to get press, and then you see an article come out in the New York Times or Vogue, for example, or Women's Wear Daily or BOF. It's just such a incredible moment to say this is such a profound accomplishment. And for people who read it, they don't understand how much work it takes and what that can do for a brand, and helping to get clothing on the royal family or celebrities because of my relationships in LA with the music industry is also something that we're really proud of. When last summer when Leonardo DiCaprio reached out about wearing one of my clients, it's Leo. This was an actor who I have felt I've grown up with. When he started in the Titanic, I was oh my God. And then to know that he wanted to wear my client's clothing because of something that he had recognized from a poll that we had done. And it was just this whole thing. And it's such a it's like a wow moment.
Of course, it's incredible.
You're like, this person has discovered this brand because of the work that we've done.
Right.
That was a really incredible moment in my career. And I've had some really, really awesome ones, and I've had some equally awful ones, and I could go on for days about it. But I think, like, you know, the takeaway for anyone who starts a business or is in business or maybe is in PR or whatever is that, like, you're going to have your fair share of ups and downs. You're going to go through days where you feel like the whole world hates you and can't do your job because maybe you're not getting traction on the story or something. And especially around COVID, that makes it a lot harder. And then you're going to have days where you feel like you're on top of the world because you just accomplished something that you didn't even realize you could do. Like, you know, Meghan Markle stepping out in something multiple times, or Leo requesting to wear your brand, or, you know, producing an event across an ocean that you didn't realize you could do, or whatever it may be. And, or helping a brand raise millions of dollars in capital. Like, there's all these different things, but you have to own the wins, right? You have to really, like, thrive in the successes to get you through the failures or the obstacles. And I say this to all of my clients, and I say this to people that I help coach and consult, is that at the end of the day, like, remember why you started. And if you wake up every day and remember why you started, no matter what the day brings, you're okay, because it can bring the worst of the worst or the best of the best. But if you always remember that you started it for a reason outside of, like, making $1, then you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're in it for the right reasons. So, I mean, I could literally be here till midnight talking about all the crap that I've been through and all the stuff I've done.
But that's what's so amazing. Your experiences and what you've been through and the things that you've seen are the great stories that are here for us to that we're here to listen to.
They're wicked stories. I mean, like, that's a whole other hour-long thing about really bad crap that's happened, and, like, you know, learning lessons about, you know, things to do in business and things not to do in business, and who to trust and who not to trust, and, you know, why you need certain paperwork, or like, all these things. And the music industry is rife with issues, right?
Oh yeah. Left, right, and center.
Yeah. Right. And so when you're in it as a woman, that's a whole other side of things. Being in it as a woman is also, like, I'm a minority in that industry, whereas in PR, like, we're majority, right? So there's just so much that happens, and you get really thick skin really quickly. And so, like, you know, anyone who wants to get into that world or into my world, you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to take all of the crap and just, like, let it slide by you, so that when the good stuff comes, you just revel in the good stuff, because it's full of both.
Absolutely.
That was going to be my next question. What would be the advice you would give anybody who wanted to enter PR, or your world, I should say, because there's so much, and you just, like, hit the nail on the head, which was, I think, the biggest, you know, takeaway is to have that thick skin, because there's, like, so much crap out there, like you said. And
also, you know, like, have a mentor. Honestly, it may sound, like, cheesy, because I know, like, the topic of mentors and the topic of business coaches and life coaches and all that is really, like, trendy right now. But it honestly really, it's so necessary, because you need someone to be able to have a sounding board to. You need someone who's been through it, who can, or at least been through stuff in life, who can, like, you know, help guide you through, because there's days where, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing it yourself and you're trying to, like, carve your own path, there's days where you're going to feel like the wall is too high. And there's days where you're going to feel like, I don't know what decision I have to make. Like, maybe there's 3 decisions in front of you and you just don't know. And you just need someone to bounce it off of. And so get a mentor. And I will say this to everyone, like, get one who you trust, who you believe in, who you look up to. And 9 times out of 10, the people who are sitting at that level will be more than happy to say, like, no problem, I'll be your mentor, or I'll help talk to you, or help, you know, guide you the way that, at least with whatever my expertise is. Like, I'm happy to do it for people. And I know many others are, because it's our way of paying it forward and giving it back. Like, we're not going to be here forever. So we want to be able to pave the way for people that are coming up underneath us to maybe, buy into the business or create their own business after us and help keep the industry thriving. So yeah, that's
actually so well said. I mean, I think people hear the word, mentors, and they just think it's a conversation. I think sometimes mentors themselves, or who say that they are mentors, don't realize how much coaching does go in it, because, people, not everything is an unhealthy competition. Sometimes you just really want to be part of that industry to, like you said, help it thrive, help it grow it forward, and leave your mark in some way or the other. And if not a mentor, life coaches or any sort of coach, it does help. But people for some reason still kind of shy away from that. I have no clue why they do that actually, but I still feel they do.
I think for some people, maybe it's just like the fear of getting shut down, or the kind of, when you look up to someone, like Jake Gold was a great mentor for me, right? Arguably, we're still great friends, like we'll text and we'll talk. And when you, maybe it's like when you idolize someone, or you think of someone being like so high up, it's like maybe they're unreachable to you. And I will say, like, nothing's unreachable. And at the end of the day, maybe they come back and say, I don't have time to do this, or I can't do it. Then and you still idolize them, and they're still that amazing person to you. Right. And you still follow their career. But there is no shame in asking, right? There's
absolutely
zero shame.
Absolutely.
As long as you ask in a professional way and you're make clear what your intentions are from the beginning, like there's absolutely no reason why you can't reach out. And I think that sort of fear of failure, or fear of being rejected, which all ties back into having thick skin, right? As
absolutely.
Just being totally unafraid to just diving in head first and going for it.
At the most, you're going to get a no, right? So you're in no different position than you were before you started. So
and Lord knows you're going to get 1,000
no's.
You're going to get even more in management and in the music industry in your first month. So you just have to ride the storm.
That alone is the most worthwhile piece of advice. Just that little bit, that you're going to get the no's, and you got to have that thick skin to run through it.
Just ride it. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's and really, this sounds bad to say, but only the strong survive.
100%.
Right?
It's true though, right? It's true. That's why not everybody are entrepreneurs. Not everybody are self-starters. Not everybody's truly living the life that they want, or living that dream of being an artist, or basically not that conventional life, because like you said, it takes a lot to put yourself out there, and you have to have that thick skin, and you have to be able to ride that storm and take that rejection. And sometimes it's just not easy for some people,
It's so true. And you guys
have to be strong. Yeah.
Because you're doing this, and you're, creating your own voice and your own podcast. And so I feel like everyone can do it. It's just a matter of how much they want to do it, right? Is your heart really in it?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, we know that. We have stories to share how, no matter what's going on in our life, in the world, we make a Tuesday podcast happen.
But that's awesome. That's so awesome.
Goes without fail. So then, thank you so much for spending the time. This was incredible, just from an overall lesson standpoint, and also just to hear your story. One of our main focuses with our show is to get voices heard, but voices that have insight, voices that have experience, voices that can give some direction and advice. And within the fashion, lifestyle, and business spaces, that's the area of our focus. So this was so insightful just for our standpoint, and I'm sure for our listeners, because this is the type of content that we feel is what we want to get out there. So thank you so much for your time, providing us with your insight, giving us a little bit of your expertise in the world that you're in, and just sharing the experiences that you've been through, because those are those conversations to me. I mean, you can learn a lot from a textbook, and you can learn a lot from school, but it's the conversation of what people are actually going through in the world, in the field that you're interested in, that really kind of give you what the world's about.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for having me, and I would love to come back and
absolutely
chat more about all the things happening. And I think, in the world of PR now, in COVID and BLM and BIPOC, I should say, and that whole movement, there's just so much changing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think the next show, what we'll do is we're gonna give you like a 45 minutes to an hour just to talk about stories, like just bring your best stories, the ones with most like juice around them, and the media stories, and just let you just share them for the hour.
I'm happy to do that because there's so much I could say.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You would love that.
And I think those stories, like you said, those stories are, I find, like the best kind of learning, because you learn from other people's experiences, right? And it kind of shapes your own experiences because you learn to do things differently.
You see success like firsthand. You see what business owners, brands, entrepreneurs, what they're doing that works and what they're doing that doesn't work, and seeing that firsthand and helping them guide through those muddy waters. I mean, who better to give that feedback to like different brands and companies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to do it. Like, we consult for tons of different people. So if anyone, like, every one of your listeners who might say like, oh, I'm interested in hearing it, we're happy to consult and come on board and just say, here's what we think you need to do. And maybe you're not ready for this and you are for that. And just offer a different perspective from where we sit, right? And that's super important for gaining success.
We'll put all your coordinates in the description, so for those that are listening, but just for the lazy people who don't want to read, do you want to drop your socials and websites and where people can meet you?
Yeah, for sure. So the company is called the NBP Group, which stands for No Bad Press. So our Instagram handle is No Bad Press, which is a reason why we named it what it is. And we're proud to say it. And so you can reach us there at No Bad Press. You can DM and someone will get back to you, momentarily. We're also on Facebook under the NBP Group. You can go to the website, which is www.nbpgrp.com. And then there's a contact form on there, or if you want to reach out by email, it's just info@nbpgrp.com. And then my personal is Dani Matte, and my personal Insta is Dani N Matte, because someone stole Dani Matte before I got it.
The worst. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, right? It's like I've been trying and they're not active and whatever. And
they don't even respond. Like, you're not using it. Just respond. Sell it to me.
Right? Yeah. It's like been like 4 years or something. Like, hello, I would like my name back. So anyways, it's Dani N Matte. And yeah, I'm happy for anyone to reach out. I'm all ears, always open for anything. So especially now, because I know people need it now more than ever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. You guys were awesome. And I hope that we chat again soon.
We 100% will. And to our listeners, thank you so much. We will see you next week. Rashi, your final words?
I think this time Dani said it all. Like, I truly agree with her, and say it proudly. Only the strongest survive. It's also great seeing a woman on top who's been able to do this, able to do this not only in Canada but across borders, which means we are capable of doing so much more. So Dani, thank you for being, that inspiration and that example for so many women. And yeah, guys, honestly, go be strong. Like, that's the only way we're gonna get shit done.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, guys. Talk soon. Bye. Hey, guys, thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind-the-scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red, button thingy that's over there, and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool, fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon.